Have you ever gone a little over the top in buying a gift for someone, something they really didn't need? Did you and your life partner ever splurge on a getaway weekend using the money that could have been spent to help pay the mortgage or to buy that new washing machine that the family really, really needs? Have you ever sent splendid, colorful flowers to a friend who was struggling to pay the gas bill? Did you ever spend money to delight your child or another child, then wondered if maybe it would have been better to put the money into their college fund? Today, just 7 weeks before we celebrate Easter, just 3 days before we enter our Lenten season, a time when we are invited to examine our lives, our choices and actions, our relationship to the divine, the story in today's scripture lesson raises puzzling issues as we begin our walk to the cross and beyond to the resurrection. It was just 2 days before the Passover, the big feast, a big high holy day in the Jewish tradition, a celebration of the defining moment when Israel became a people, when they headed out into the desert to wander toward the promises that God had given them, being formed into a community as they struggled together in their wilderness wanderings. By this time in the Gospel of Mark, when the feast of the Passover is being celebrated in this story, the story of Jesus is just about over. We're almost at the end of the gospel. The Jewish key religious leaders and religious scholars had had their fill of Jesus. He didn't fit the mold. He didn't proclaim the party line. He didn't uphold the doctrines that kept their power and control intact, even if it was at the expense of sometimes at those they severely judged and strongly overpowered. And these leaders were plotting against Jesus, seeking ways to do him in, looking for an excuse to arrest him, finding some stealthy way to kill him, but they had to wait. They couldn't act, not just yet, not during the feast. There were too many people in town for the festive holiday. If they acted now, the people might riot. For this intriguing traveling teacher leader named Jesus attracted crowds, lots of crowds, sometimes big crowds, crowds who often liked this message they were hearing. The people resonated with this unique, curious man who was more concerned about people and truth and justice and connecting with divine love than he was concerned with religiosity and rigid rules that too easily buried truth, denied justice, and dismantled connection with God. They had to wait. And in the meantime, tension continued to build. Now, I suspect Jesus knew he was in trouble. I'm guessing he could feel the tension and see the mounting dangers around him. I have a hunch he knew the only way out, if a way out was now even possible, the only way out was to toe the line, march in lockstep with the religious establishment, get on board with the religious message of the day. I suspect Jesus could see what was coming. If he changed course right now, maybe, just maybe, he'd survive this. If he stayed the course, things were looking pretty grim. And Jesus made his choices. He went to dinner at Simon's house, Simon, who was suffering from leprosy that according to Jewish law made him unclean, someone whom religious people would not touch, nor with whom they would even associate. Making matters worse, a woman, clearly another person at the bottom of the social ladder of the day, enters the house, approaching Jesus, and Jesus allows the interaction, refusing to rebuke her and send her away. And this woman anoints Jesus, pouring expensive oil on his head, and the anger rises quickly among some who are watching. The scathing criticism starts to fly. What a waste! You should have sold the ointment for a lot of money and given it to the poor. Of course, those who were scrutinizing this act were right, at least technically. The expensive ointment could have been sold for a tidy sum and the money given to the poor. But Jesus, who very clearly has cared about the poor this entire journey, confronts the scolding, tongue-wagging, finger-pointing dinner guests. Leave her alone. She has done a beautiful thing for me. Beautiful acts come in many kinds. We could evaluate the act, criticize the one who has acted, clarify what we are sure should have been done instead, or we could say, what a beautiful thing.